Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are transitioning into a new bullet journal for the remainder of 2021. Before I begin setting up my new bullet journal, I have to let everyone know that this belongs to me. I wanted to keep some similarities between this journal and the first one that I set up earlier this year. So if any of you remember, you can see that this cover page is very similar to the one that I did back in January, where I have the large 2 and 1 numbers with 2021 spelled out in between. I typically like to keep my beginning bullet journal setups very neutral, usually just blacks, grays, and some craft paper if I want to add a little color to my setup, but this time I am going full on color with the Tombow Pastel palette. As you can see, I'm just creating some various shapes in the colors from the palette, and I'm going to be using some stamps that I've had for a while. They're just simple floral stamps to include a little bit of artistic flair to this setup, but I just had a craving for some color this time around, so this is just slightly different from some of my other setups. Both the brush pens that I use and the stamps that I'm using are linked below for anyone who would like to use these in any of their future setups. Moving on, this is something that is always in my bullet journal setups, and that is my grid spacing page. I know everyone has their certain way of doing this specific page, but this is just the spacing that I use the most, so having this on hand as a reference really helps me when creating my weekly spreads and some of my other spreads that I like to use throughout the year. This next spread is a bane, I'm sure, for everyone because it requires lettering out so many individual months. This is where stickers or stamps come in handy, but I have been doing these by hand this year, so I'm just going to continue with that. Having the 0.01 Sakura Pigma Micron pens really helps create those tiny little numbers. Moving on is another holdover from my setups, and that's the future log. All of these spreads are pretty standard issue, I think, when setting up your bullet journal. It just depends on how you like to set them up. There's various ways that you can make these pages. Again, I'm sticking with the similar layout that I did to my setup earlier this year, just to create a little bit of consistency between each journal. But this time I am using the colors instead of just the neutral tones that I used earlier this year. And again, I am writing out each and every month, but I think next year I might have to go back to the stamps or stickers. It just saves my hand a lot of pain and torture. And I don't know if this is the case for any of you watching, but I really just hate how my numbers look. I know they're so simple, but for some reason I just can't get my numbers to look the way I would like them to. Before moving on, I just wanted to finish up this page with some more colorful shapes, followed by some stamps. These two pages are pages that got filled up very quickly in my last bullet journal, so I'm recreating them in this one, and that is my watch list and my reading list. These pages are also just simple brain dump pages, one for content ideas and one for theme ideas. I haven't really thought about what themes I'm going to do for the rest of the year, so this page will come in handy, and I have some ideas of other videos that I'd like to create, so I just want to have these pages to kind of brainstorm those out. This is my final spread for this setup, and it's just another year in photo page. I filled up my last journal with photos just from the first 6 months of the year, so I thought I would bring this spread over so that I can fill up the last 6 months of the year with more photos. One spread that I did not bring over was my goals spread. I still have a lot of room in my previous journal for that, and to be honest, I only had a few, so I didn't really see it necessary to recreate that spread in this setup. And before we move on to my flip through, just want to remind you all, if you haven't already, to subscribe to my channel. That way you won't miss any of my upcoming videos, including my July setup. Here is my 2021 setup for the second half of the year. Thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.